thank
Yeah,
you very much for joining the call. Okay, so let me give
you're
a quick
welcome.
round of introduction. Let me give a
Sure.
quick round of introduction. The next topic is very interesting. I think you should just relax and listen to Rajesh Garu because now you will see the wisdom from experience across the globe. Okay, so Rajesh Tedla is a business transformation leader with a track record of empowering over 1,500 SMBs and generating over $500 million in economic impact. He specialized in helping businesses drive sustainable growth, enhance leadership capabilities, and create lasting organizational change through strategy execution and operational excellence, and many more. So, welcome to you, Rajesh Garu. Thank you for joining the session. Over to you. Let us
Thank you
hear
very
the
much.
growth as a process. That is something which is amazing topic. Yeah,
Yes,
please go ahead.
yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent, excellent. So this is all focused on basically a lot of people think growth, you need to do a lot of different things. But the biggest part of it is you can really feel comfortable about creating a process around growth. And how do we go back and do that piece of it? There are first fundamental things that we need to work on. Whenever you want to go back and grow your business, there are certain foundational things that we need to work on. The first piece I would go back and give you what are some of the foundational work which we need to always be very clear. You might be a one person company, you might be a 50 employee company, or you might be a 500,000 employees company. All of that doesn't matter what the size is. You will be looking at the company and working towards certain basic foundational work. The first thing is I always tell people is look at your company and say what are your core values, because a company can grow when the core values are identified and clearly communicated and articulated. It helps in recruiting the right people, it helps in developing the right people, promoting the right people, and it gives the guidance for all the employees to go back and say what is important for the company and work with. So definitely the core values are very, very important. Along with that, we need to understand what the purpose of the organization is. A lot of people go back and neglect this piece of it, and that is reason why they be a little bit chaotic. They have hiring problems, they have retention problems in that. So the second piece of it is the purpose piece of it. What is the purpose of the organization? If you go back and look at my company right now, VRT Management Group, we are all focused on really helping the small and medium sized companies. Our complete focus is there. If some big companies come, we go back and we work with them, but we don't focus on that. Our whole focus is how do we help the small businesses to really take the next scale the businesses, develop their leaders so that they can successfully grow and be profitable in the long run. And I don't know if you people know the statistics of it. Over 50% of the companies pretty much go bankrupt in the first 5 years. And that's a huge number. And if you take the number after 10 years, there 95% of the companies are bankrupt or they're not in business for whatever reason. And that was the passion we had. And whatever I'm talking about from growth as a process is to go back and minimize that 95% of it. And that's the reason why I'm going back and putting this foundational skills first in place. So the third piece of it is the BHAG. BHAG is called Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. Every entrepreneur is very ambitious. Every entrepreneur's business owner really need to set up a vision which is at least 10 to 20 years ahead of yourself. A lot of people are very good in talking about the next 1 year. They're not talking about the 10 years or 20 years. But starting point, you want to go back and have your vision for 10 to 15 years so that your 1 year and 3 year are aligned to the big picture piece of it. So BHAG is called Big, Hairy, Audacious Goal. You need to have a goal that is something very, very big and large. When you think of it, you're really motivated about it. At the same time, you're really, really scared of it as well because that is so huge. If you can accomplish, it is not a BHAG. It is very, very simple. Anytime there is a goal which makes you stretch your thinking and thought process, that is very powerful. So you want to go back and look at it from that part of it. And then there are some business planning you need to go back and look at it. So some aspects of your business planning are you need to really be clear where do you want to go and which geographic areas you want to work. And I get a lot of pushback from people right now saying that, hey, right now with the whole internet and everything else, I can do business anywhere. Yes, I agree with them. But do you have the resources to go back and advertise across the globe? And if the business comes, are your products and services can be delivered in a very, very successful way and a profitable way across the globe? That is something you need to go back and look at it. So I'll just give you an example from the geographic location. My 90% of my business comes from US because I'm resident in US and I work with the customers there. Anybody calls anybody in the US, I can very comfortably travel. But occasionally I go back and get some people from international. As Abdul was just talking about a few minutes ago, basically I have a client here I came here to work with. But that is a client who has been with me for a long time and we met in the US. So that is what it is. So go back and look at it, depending on your scope, who your customer is and which geographic location they are. And take your time to really understand who your target customer is. If you really don't go back and do the homework and understand who your target customer is, then it becomes very, very difficult because you're wasting a lot of marketing dollars and you're going back and wasting a lot of other resources going after and chasing non customer segments and wasting time and resources. So you having a clear understanding basically who the customer segment you want to go after, that is very critical and that is foundational to your business. And one thing, you can go back and look at it at every 1 year and 3 year perspective. It is not that you don't want to change, but you want to go back and focus more on the medium to long term. So when I talk about short term, I'm talking about 1 year. When I'm talking about medium term, I'm talking about 2, 3, 4 years. When I'm talking about long term, I'm talking beyond 4 years. So just go back and remember that. So at the 1 year mark and the 3 year mark, you really want to understand who your target customer is. And then a lot of people have different products and services. So you need to be very, very clear what are the products and services you want to go back and supply to the target customers you want. And remember, these are all foundational skills. So all the 7 elements, 8 elements I'm talking about right now, they're all foundations that every single business owner, a business leader, CEO, whatever title you have, you need to have that and your leadership team need to be very, very clear about. Because if you miss on your target customer and if you miss on the products and services, then you're wasting a lot of resources. There is a lot of chaos and a lot of losses for the business. So remember that very, very, very well. And then you want to go back and see is what is the value proposition? What kind of value are you providing to these customers? And the next piece of it is the brand promise. So the value proposition is what is the value the customer will get from working with you. The brand promise is your reputation and what the customer expects when they talk from you. And let me go back and give you an example. If you go back and look at the value proposition from, let us say, FedEx, right? The brand promise of FedEx is it will be delivered next day. You have so many other courier services doing it today. But the first time when FedEx did that, nobody believed in it and they came to be known as the next day company. That's the reason why FedEx became very famous. So that is their brand promise. So if you look at the value proposition, one of the things, if you talk to any of the customers from VRT management group, they're very, very customer focused. They're very, very flexible. They will go the extra mile to go back and help their clients. That is the message you will hear. So that's the slight difference between that. When you work with VRT, you go back and get outstanding service. When you work with FedEx, you're expected that you will be delivered in 24 hours. So you want to go back and say, as a company, what is that you want to be known for? What is that your customers will go back and experience working with you? So once you have these 8 elements very, very clearly defined, that is when your growth as a process starts. Even if 1 or 2 elements are missing here, basically it becomes a little more of a struggle for you to scale your business. And one of the biggest question a lot of people ask is, Raj, how do you go back and look at it from your products and services? I can sell so many different products. I can go back and sell so many different services. So what equation I tell people is always go back and do a SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That is called a SWOT. Very, very powerful tool, very well known tool. A lot of people, any student who has gone and done an MBA or worked with an MBA would have the tool available to them. But what they do is they do a SWOT analysis in a vacuum. They don't do focused SWOT analysis. That is something which is very unique for me and my clients and all the successful companies that I have met. What they do is they first go back and establish their 1 year goals. So let us say you're a business and you want to go back and do, let us say $10 million US next year. And you are currently at 8 million. So you want to grow by 20%. So when you go back and say, what are your strengths at 8 million can become a weakness when you're looking at it from a 10 million perspective. So you might have the best salespeople, but right now they can only do 8 million. So that is a strength for you at $8 million. That's the reason why you are successful today. But that can become a weakness because you don't have excess capacity to go back and deliver $10 million. You need to go back and hire some more people and train them before you can be a $10 million company. That is one of the things that is an outcome that comes from a SWOT analysis. So you always want to look at it from your strengths. What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities and threats? And from your products and services, what I want you to go back and think through is what are your strengths? And then who are your main competitors? And see what are some of their strengths and weaknesses based on what you can do. We can do a lot of secondary research to identify that. So if that is a weakness of theirs and a strength of yours, now you get a competitive advantage. So that is the first level of SWOT analysis you need to do. And the second piece of it is, are the customer segments whom you're going after, are they comfortable paying for those services? A lot of people miss this piece of it. Everybody says, I want outstanding value. That is great. But if the customer is not willing to pay for that, then the value will remain as a value on piece of paper, but you can never get the right customer there. So that is something which you want to do. Once you do your SWOT analysis, go back and look at your customers. Go back and look at what are your strengths are, what are the weaknesses from your customer, and the third piece of it is the customer willing to go back and pay for it? Are they comfortable paying for it? So I'll take the market in India. There's so many middle class and upper middle class families who are growing very, very well, and they're looking for the next level of growth and lifestyle. But all of these people cannot buy a Audi or a Mercedes Benz. So the Audi and the Mercedes Benz, they need to go back and look at it more from the rich people rather than the upcoming middle class people. Because right now, all of their vehicles are over 1 crore plus. They can advertise a lot to reach the middle class, but the middle class people would not be comfortable buying. Maybe one or two might be buying, but most of the middle class would not be comfortable. So Audi, if you look at it, their strength is making outstanding luxury cars. The weakness is they have a much better edge than compared to the other competitors in their area for this. But the third piece, if they go after the middle class, they really can't afford the car and they're not willing to pay for it. That is the kind of a SWOT analysis you need to look at your products and services as well. And if you can do that piece of it, then you know who the right customer are. You know if you're working with the right products. You know that there is a demand for your product and your segment is willing to pay for it. That is the kind of a thought process you need to go back and look at it. And remember one thing, every year you need to be comfortable with this. You need to revisit all of these 8 elements. And that would be what we call your annual strategic planning. I always recommend people is use the month of September to go back and do your strategic planning. And by December, everything is finalized. And before the new year starts, every single employee knows what we are shooting for, what are our goals are, what are the metrics, and what do we need to do. That is when the growth as a process becomes. So once you have established this, so now I'm assuming and I'm going to what the growth as a process is, And in this, you want to go back and carefully follow what I'm talking about, because this is a process which starts in Jan and it ends in December. So once you have the foundational work you have done, and we assume that you already done, the first thing you do in a January is you have celebrated if you had a great year, or you went back and learned some lessons if it was not a great year. So in January, what you do is you tell your business leaders, functional leaders, whoever you have, even if you have, let us say, a 10, 15 employee company, you have the marketing person, you have a sales person, you have a product person, you have an operation person, you have a finance person. So each one of them needs to look at the last 12 months and go back and say, hey, how was our performance? So we set up a goal for last year. How was our performance against that? What are some of the best practices we have learned? What are the lessons what we have learned? What worked very well for us? What worked, what did not work for us? So we call this whole process as SPR, strategy performance review. I am not talking about a regular performance. I'm talking about the performance of your strategy. So you look at the last 1 year, you already set up the goals, you have the foundation in place. And what you do is you go back and take and say, how did I perform against my strategy for last year? And it takes you about 4 hours. And if anybody needs any additional information and stuff, feel free to contact us and we will send you some additional information, because I cannot go back and teach everything in the next 30 minutes. So strategy execution review, strategy performance review. So what I was talking about is the performance review. The performance review is learning from last year experiences. And one of the things I tell people is they always go back and say, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, right? I remove the word lose because there is nothing to lose. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. And that is what this process helps leaders to do. Because there is nothing called losing, because you're learning from that process. If you learn from the process, you're going back and enhancing it for the next year. So the next year you have a better result. So I want each one of you to think about that piece of it. Sometimes we win, sometimes we learn. That is the outcome that comes from your strategy performance review, SPR. And the second thing that you do in the month of January is strategy execution review. Now you already set up a goal in December that we are going to do this. So every single company in the month of January will be looking at and saying, we set some goals. What are some of the risks that are associated with it? Can we deliver this? Are there risks compared to the people? Do we have any people shortage? Do we have any skill shortage? Did the economy change? Did our competitors do something to change? So these are some of the questions. We go back and do a thorough analysis to go back and monitor and see if there are any obstacles in reaching our goals. That is the execution review. This is for the current year. So we just finished our strategy execution review for our business. And I helped already 4 or 5 businesses in the last 20 days complete that. And that gives you the idea and say, hey, these are the 3 or 5 risks are associated with my business. If I don't fix those, the probability is I don't meet my goals for 2025. As soon as you identify that, that is 50% of the battle. Now you can go back and put some time and resources to it and say, how do I mitigate those things? So the probability of success is very high when you identify those in the month of Jan, and then start putting some mitigants or bringing in some solutions to go back and work with that. So that is the execution review. So what you do that in the January month, you go back and look at it from your departments, look at it from your different functions. And now, once you finish that in January, you go to the February, and each department comes together as a group and they bring their best practices. The best practices can be on what worked, successes, and what we learned, things that did not go very well, and what did we learn from that. So by the middle to end of February, every single company, every single employee has all of these best practices communicated to them. And if there are any risks for execution, some of the mitigants and solutions, what do we need to do differently, comes into the picture. And that is the beauty of that piece when you go back and talk about it. So with this, January and February is a lot of learning and execution piece of it. And then in the month of March, what you want to do is you want to go back and look at it and evaluate how the year is going. Because you have finished 25% of the year, you can go back and see what the feedback is from the field, from the customers, from the products, from the services, and especially your strategy execution. What are some of the mitigants? Are they really working? Do we need to change anything to this? These are some of the questions the business owner and the leadership team is working together in the month of March to go back and do course corrections. And this is what a beauty of a business is. Any business that wants to grow very much, these are the kind of things, they're always checks and balances to evaluate everything else and implement those. So we need to frequently be discussing about this, evaluating this, and making the changes. I always like to give an example of a plane. If anybody knows that a plane always takes off in the right direction and lands in the right direction, in the right airport. But if you look at the flight path, 90 to 95% of the time, it is off the path. Every single few minutes, there is a course correction happening on the flight, but the destination is always there. And that is the analogy we are taking for this growth as a process. We are constantly going back and making changes. We may not be on track to accomplish our goals. That is okay. But what course correction do we need to do? How do we need to work with these things? And that is the kind of a thought process each business leader needs to know. So between January, February, and March, there is a lot of learning, a lot of best practices, and a lot of evaluation. So once you're done with that piece of it, now comes the month of April. Now, what I tell people is whenever you're planning, you need to look at it from 1 year and a 3 year perspective. So now you have your 1 year plan. Now you have your 3 year plan from last October or last September, whatever time you have taken to do it. Now we want thinking about for this year. So 2025, we will again be doing a plan in the month of September, October, right? So for that piece of it, what you need to do is, hey, what are some of the new initiatives I need to be thinking about for the year 2028? Because when you're doing planning in 2025, you're thinking about 3 years from there. That would be 2028. And now this is the first stage of it. We are doing some brainstorming ideas, and you bring a lot of different ideas. And one of the beauty of the growth as a process is your mindset and your thinking process. As a business leader, I want each one of you to go back and write this down. 70% of the time, you're focused on your current year goals. So whatever your goals are for 2025, 70% of your time should be focused on that. And then you need to spend 20% of your time on year 2 and year 3, because you want to be always be ready for the future as well. Your teams are working with you and they are 100% focused on execution for 25. But you, from a strategy perspective, you're only spending 70%. But you're taking the 30%, and out of the 30%, 20% goes on year 2 and year 3. And then you take the 10% and you're thinking beyond year 3, the year 4 and 5. And this is where the month of April becomes very important. In the month of April, you're brainstorming ideas for the year 2, year 3, year 4. And let us say as a business, you got 10, 12 different ideas. Depending on your business side, you may not go back and have the capacity to work on all these ideas. So what you do is you go back and do some analysis, and in the month of May, you bring in all of the information and you go back and say, hey, these are the 2 ideas which are really, really looking great. We need to work on these things, or we need to go back and do more research to see if it is the right thing to do. So you have your 10, 15 ideas that are coming up in April. And now in the month of May, you're shortlisting those things and coming up with maybe 2 ideas, 3 ideas. I always tell people is if you are a small business, when I say small business, I'm talking about companies with less than 100 employees. For me, most of my clients are between 75 and 80 employees, 100 employees. So all of them are less than 100. That's the group I really love to do because there's so much of energy and they like to grow their businesses. So these businesses, basically, I tell them don't work on more than 3 new ideas at any given year because they don't have the resources to spend on these new ideas. So in the month of May, we go back and solidify all of these ideas. We come up with our top 3 that we want to investigate. And what happens after May? We go back and identify who we need to work with. So we assign this, and what we call is we create project charters. A project charter is something to go back and understand what is the opportunity this idea is going after, what is the goal of this, what are some of the benefits, and how difficult it is to implement it, and what are the assumptions, and are those assumptions true or not. These are some of the questions we put it into the project charter. And I always encourage people in the US, and I'm just telling you from a US point of view, there are a lot of MBA students who have few years of experience and they're going for an MBA. So ideally, I tell my people to hire an summer intern. And this intern is somebody who has finished their bachelor's degree, worked for 2, 3 years, and now they're pursuing their MBA degrees. And they finish their first year and they have the summer vacation for 2, 3 months. We try to recruit them so that they get a very good experience for 2, 3 months on a real project. So they come in, they look at the project charters, and for the next 6 to 8 weeks, they are conducting all the research. They're going back and working and looking at primary research, secondary research. They might be talking to their customers. They might be looking at the competitors or who are the current suppliers. They're doing all of this analysis. And by the time they finish all of those things, June and July are past. And by the time July, they come, they submit their report to the leadership team and to the owner, and they go back to their second year of their MBA program. And then the leadership team evaluates everything and they have enough information and say, yes, this will be something that we want to implement next year, or we need to do some more research, or whatever the result comes from the research piece of it. And once the research is done, and the leadership team decides now in the August, basically what you do, each department is coming up and saying these are some of the ideas that we want to implement for the next year. So what you're doing is, if you look at basically August of 2025, we are thinking about what are the goals for the year 2026. This is what planning is. This is what growth as a process is. We are looking at it almost 6 months before, 5 months before, because we want to plan right. We want to go back and do the analysis. We want to understand the risks and the opportunities. We want to understand our budgets. All of these things are being done 4 to 5 months before to have a good, robust strategy plan. And what I tell people is, in the month of July and August, while we are doing this, we know we want to grow our company. And like I was giving you the example of 8 million to 10 million, right? So for the 2 million, they need some different people. We need some different skills. So you evaluate all the talent you have in the company and go back and say, hey, there are some people who can be trained to take on bigger responsibility. There are some people who can be promoted. There are some people who really need more functional training, or we have some big gaps and basically we need to bring talent from the outside. I just heard one of the other speaker talking about a lot about AI and large language models. If your business, that is a very critical thing. Most of the small businesses or medium-sized companies don't have that. This can be a process saying, hey, next year I'm going to do this business, and part of the service, I need AI. I need large language model. So now they identify this and they start thinking and seeing whom can they recruit and bring the talent. These are the kind of things that come into the picture. If you're thinking you have a new product and the opportunity is big, then you go back and say, I need an experienced new product introduction leader. So there are so many people in the market who can hire. So those are the kind of questions. You're identifying your talent, you're identifying the goals for the next 1 year and 3 years, and you're looking at all the other resources. So based on all of these things, by September, you have your strategic plan ready for the next 1 year and 3 years. And that's the reason why I tell September is a very, very important month for me. All my clients say that, hey, Raj, September is coming. How do we talk? How do we work on these things? And once you have the plan in September and you have all the goals and everything else, in the month of October and November, now you need to go back and see, hey, what are the budgets? Because whenever we are introducing people, we need to go back and say, do we have the money to finance all this? Remember, every year they're investing in our business. If we don't have the budget, we cannot do anything else. So the October month is all about looking at the finances. So I was talking about a new product. If there is a new product which has a potential, but we need to see that there is an investment we need. We need X number of dollars for investing in this before we can start seeing the results. Do we have the money, or can we borrow the money? Can we get other sources of money? Whatever that case. So by October and middle of November, you finish off all of these things and you finalize the budget. And based on the budget, you have the final goals for the next 1 year and 3 years. Once you have this in November, by December, what you want to do is you have the final plans, you have the budgets, you have the requirements for the people, everybody else. And now it is making sure that everybody in the company knows what the goals are, what do we need to work, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges. All of that are discussed even before the Christmas break. In the US, the Christmas break is a big break. So before December 25th, we have all of these things done. And once we have all of these things completed, the next step is implementing it. And now comes January, cycle process starts. You're always going back and looking at it from that process again. And what happens? Now you have the SCR and SPR going through again. And that is what growth as a process is. You consistently take the 8 foundational skills and you go back and work with these 12 steps every month for the rest of the year. The combination of the two are very, very powerful. And we can take that piece of it and repeat it year after year after year. And that's the reason why the growth as a process is very effective. And every year you're looking at certain elements, and that will help you to grow and accomplish the vision that you have. So I'm going to let people to think about it for a couple of minutes, and I would love to go back and answer any questions anybody has.
Hmm.
Anybody online? Anybody has any questions?
Yes, 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 sir. Yep. Mhm.
Okay, perfect.
Mhm. So basically,
So,
yeah. So I think growth as process, it was like a story. So you just narrated it in such a way that actually I was just relating it to myself. Okay, so how does it fit?
okay.
Okay, it's a really fantastic way to explain the, the overall process for the growth. Okay, and then the what I understand is the strict discipline of things. Okay, prioritizing and just not diluting your resources. That is something which is
Yes.
very, very, very important, as you said. Only one question is, yeah, we have a cycle. Okay, and you also
Yes.
said that you have a start and end, and then
Yes.
you have a course correction in the journey. So even
Yes.
the timelines, what you just said, in September, October, the strategy planning kind of thing. This also can change based on your technology evolution, the company evolution, right? So it's a
Yes.
yeah, it's a directionally, yeah, this is it. Okay. Most of the organizations, this cycle is there. In case if you would like to deviate it based on your industry trends, so you can do that. But largely the
Yes.
cycle remains same. Yeah.
Yes.
So
So
what do
I
you
can
think?
give you a couple of examples on that. So if you think of implementing this in India, right, I would change that and I would start my cycle in April and end in March, because our fiscal year ends in March here in the US. And then, so by January would be in April in the Indian market for meeting the cycle of our taxation and our financial years. So that is one example. If you look at the consumer goods, at least I'm giving you perspective from the US. So during Christmas, they have the biggest sale. All the businesses, retail customers have 40-50% of the sale happening only in December. So what in the US we have is basically there are a lot of people who can go back and return and exchange.
Mhm.
So what
Mhm.
happens is they have their cycle always end of February. So their January would be either February or March. Because if you have so many returns and stuff, it really affects their income taxes and the tax filing and everything. Financially, it can have a positive or a negative effect, and that can be a fluctuation. So for them, they go back and change the circle by a couple of months. So what you said is perfectly fine. I gave you one based on a general US kind of a framework because I've been there in the US for the last 36 years and I'm used to that. But every other country, depending on who you are and what it is and stuff, definitely go back and customize it. The 12-month cycle remains the same, but you start at a different time and end at a different time. Great question there.
That is fantastic, sir. And one more thing is, uh, as you said, so you explained the whole process, growth as a process,
Yes.
in a crystal clear way. Okay, it's very obvious. It looks very simple. But the problem here is the mid-size organizations and the smaller organizations, around 100, less than 100 employees, they think the consulting, taking advice from a consultant, uh, uh, and building enabling the enablers, maybe a little whatever systems they needed, the processes. So people are not, people are a little hesitant to invest in this. Okay, maybe
Yes.
in this part of the world. Okay, how is this going to change? I know people appreciate this, but maybe they have a bad experience with some consultants kind of thing. That is also could be reason, or maybe they have some failures. But how is this trend going to change, Rajesh?
Check, basically, my whole policy is basically one customer at a time. Because what I
Mhm.
tell people is basically, unless people trust you, they're not going to do anything else. So the biggest part of it is, are we building trust with the people? And what I tell people is focus on the 20 to 30% of the people who are willing to change. They're almost like 20 80 20 rule. 80% of the people are very skeptical because they have burned their hands, or they're very smart and basically they think that they know everything and they can do it themselves. And that's perfectly fine. See, I have a lot of people going back, Raj, this is a very simple process. Why do I need to hire anybody? I said, no, you don't need to hire anybody. Do you have the time to do it? And do you have the resources to go back and really learn by making all the mistakes you have? You bring in an experienced consultant and you work with them, you at least know they're coming from experience and they're not going to make the mistakes.
There is no trial and
And
error.
exactly, there is no trial and error. Perfectly said. And the second part of it is your time so cheap? Your time is more valuable. You need to be spending on time on building customers or bringing something much more important than getting into some of the nitty gritty details. So what I tell my CEOs, whomever I talk to, is, I'm talking in the US terms, so excuse me when I'm using US dollars, is anything if you are going back and doing it yourself and it's not going to cost at least $2,000, don't do it. So if you bring in a consultant and the consultant will charge you $2,000 per hour, then you do it. If it is less than that, delegate it. Because their time in building the 5 million, 10 million, $20 million company, their time is much more valuable there. So they need to go back and look at it from their time perspective, because the only resource in the world that cannot be replaced is time. Because every single person has the exact same number of hours. I can't even bring in 1 second back. And some people, because of their financial situation, I agree with it, because everybody is not with the same financial resources, so they have to be very very controlling their finances and stuff. I agree with them. But if they have an opportunity, they have to go back and bring in the consultant. And just my example, basically, to go back and give you that piece of it, if you look at my customer base, I've been doing this full time for 17 years, and I have over 50 customers who are still with me for an average of 10 years. The small businesses, if you think, oh, what is there after a year or 2 or 3, right? But there are certain new things that always come up. When they're growing, new challenges come, new opportunities come. So they need somebody who can talk to. Because if they talk to somebody like you or me who have so much of experience in the field, because my experience is working with almost 1,500 entrepreneurs and CEOs. I have seen a lot of things. And my unique experience is I worked for General Electric. So I'm bringing a lot of years of experience and expertise from a multi-billion dollar company, a Fortune 10 company. And that combination with these experiences, now they can leverage that. So they're not paying for an hour's time, they're paying for 35 years of expertise. And that is what some of the people, their thought process has to change.
Correct. Correct. I think that's very important uh, thought process. Every business owner and the CEOs should have. Okay, it's not
Yes,
only just spend. It's not an expense. It's an investment. So bringing some
exactly. Very
expert,
well said.
it's an
Yes,
investment. Great, great, sir.
yes.
So we have one question from
Sure.
Akanga Solomon. Solomon, I think Akanga is from Kenya. Okay,
Okay.
so he's talking about great presentation, Raj. What of countries like Kenya, where fiscal year starts in July, does the September cycle change? Yeah. So if
Yes. If this starts in our January becomes July for them, if that is what it is. Or if you're comfortable, then go back and make it August. So there's nothing wrong where you start as long as you're doing the 12 steps inconsistently. That is the piece of it. What I want people to go back and look at it is it's easy to explain because everybody follows the January to December calendar. We all celebrate New Year. It doesn't matter which culture we have. So that was easy to explain. But you make your January 1st on July or August. It doesn't matter. And are you consistently doing that every month? The key piece of it is learning and consistently doing that. The first year will be the toughest one because you feel like, am I doing it right? I'm doing it wrong, what it is and stuff. If you keep on working on that piece of it, even if you make some mistakes, that's okay. What I tell people is most of my clients saw significant results after the second time they implemented. So year three. So year first, they were very, very comfortable and stuff, but there were so many false positives, false negatives and stuff. Second year, they were much more comfortable. But year three, their growth was significant. So you need to have patience. So growth as a process. So our learning is also a process. The first time we implement, we are not experts in that. The third time we implement, we have enough experiences, we have learned enough, and now you can get outstanding success out of it.
okay, okay.
Very
It's
good
really
question.
amazing, amazing insights. Anybody who wants to speak to Raj, please feel free. Just raise your hands. We can open your mic and you can talk. Yeah. Uh, few any questions? Mhm. So I take this as an opportunity to ask you, Raj. Now,
Yeah.
in India, this segment of 100 employee companies is really very large,
Yes. Yes.
especially in the manufacturing, logistics, and supply chain. It's a
Yes.
very large, and it's very growing very fast. Okay.
Yes.
But the mindset of these entrepreneurs is to set up the process, the hardware, which is machines and the customers. It is very well understood. But coming
Yes.
to the processes, whether it is a
Yes.
business process or is a strategy management process, is not that much is mature still. Okay.
Yes.
So what is your advice for such industries in India, or of course in the Middle East kind of thing?
Yes. So one of the biggest thing I go back and look at it is for any business to be successful, they need to look at it from three dimensions. One dimension is you need to always have a strategy. If you don't have a strategy, you will make a lot of false steps. The second piece of it, when you go back and talk about, is the process steps. You need to have great processes, and the machines and equipment, hardware, software has to be aligned with your processes. And the third piece of it is you need to have the right people.
Mm.
So it is almost like you look at the autos in this thing, right? For any business, I go back and look at it from those three wheels. Even one of the wheel is not there, the company really falters and it creates problems. And most of the people, they go after the easy one because they think of infrastructure. Buying an infrastructure and putting it there is easy because you shell out money, you can get it. But if they do the same thing and change that from a people first perspective and go back and train their people and get the people equipped with the right things, they will fix the process much faster. People changing of people behaviors is tough. That's the reason why people avoid that. They don't know how to do it and they neglect that and they think I can replace with somebody. What I tell people, and I have done enough research on that piece of it, is you made it a bad employee, you are losing almost 1 year of the salary of that. Any employee you hire and you fire them or they leave in less than 12 months, you're lost 1 year of their salary, which is a lot of money. So go back and take the time to hire the right person, and then your strategy and process can be done. So that is one of the biggest advice I give to a lot of people. So definitely don't take the easy part. Equipment is there. It's very important, automation, all of those things. But if you don't have the right operator, it doesn't matter what kind of automation and what kind of hardware, software you have. And they need to look at it from those three perspectives. You definitely need to have a strategy. You definitely need to have people, and then the process. And if you look at it, we look at all three of those in different segments of the 12-month journey when we have growth as a process. So I tell August and basically July and August are the time where we look at all the employees and the goals we have for 3 years.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think I just those are my questions. And if anybody wants to ask, please feel free. Raj is here. Okay, we have another 10 minutes, Raj.
Yes.
So yeah, Akanga, yeah, Solomon, he raised hand. Yeah, yeah, please go ahead. Would like to speak? Yeah, you can try.
Hi Raj, what's up? Hi
Hi,
Raj,
how are you?
fine, fine. Once again, you've made a great presentation. Just asking a follow-up question.
Yes.
You've mentioned that if you hire an employee and they leave after 12 months,
Yes.
you've technically wasted 12 months salary, right?
Yes.
But then I'm looking at it in terms of what about the trends which are there in terms of the average duration of time employees currently stay in a given place of work. Specifically, I mean, the trends in 2021 are that on average, employees, most of the young employees will stay with you for 2-3 years max.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the number is constantly going down. So
Yes.
what I'm asking myself is, in the fullness of time, will you be in a position to reduce the 12 months to 6 months, or what exactly will we be able to do?
No. If you go back and look at it, one of the things, if I understood your question right, basically, if they live in the first 12 months, that is the company loss. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that. If I lose somebody after 3 months, then the time, energy, everything I have put, the company loses 1 year of their salary. I'll just take US terms. If I hire somebody for $50,000, they live in, let us say, 6 months. So I already paid the person a salary of 25,000, 6 months. And then all the training of the managers, the recruitment, the tools, everything else, that would cost me another $25,000. So I lost $50,000 of salary. So basically, Solomon, the question I understood from you, and the way I understood, I'm answering this. If you go back and say employee attrition is at 2.5 to 3 years, and you might be going back and saying, how can I go back and increase that? That's a different question. And what I would go back and tell to the business owners is, one, recruit the right people. Make sure they really understand what the job description is and what are you hiring for. So the clarity around the job is the number one thing which employees look for. Once they understand the requirements, they understand this. The second step is, do they have a very good relationship with the manager they have? The manager is the second most reason why people leave companies. And the third reason is the opportunity for learning and growing. In a small business like 100 employees, growing is not very fast. Then we need to focus on and help them to learn different skills so that they can grow mentally and education wise, knowledge which they can grow back. When you have these three things in place and you're paying the employee the average salary of what the market is, you can keep them for years together. That is what I would say. If you don't want to lose an employee for after 2.5 years or 3 years, all of these people are not living because it is fun to live. It is because one of the three elements is missing. They really don't understand their job, and you're in a chaotic situation and they don't know where they're doing, then they lose it. Or they don't have a manager whom they can work and learn and is not a good mentor, they will live. Or the third, they're not having any opportunities for growth or experimenting and learning new things. 80% of your 2.5, 3 years people will be staying with you if you address these three things. So I don't know if that is the right question you asked, but at least for people who are looking at and saying, how can you reduce the attrition? Focus on these three things.
Yeah. I think
Actually, you have addressed my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's very important. It's not about the 12 months. Okay. It's
Yes.
about when you take an employee and they leave it before they deliver the results.
Yes.
It's a waste of time for you. Okay.
Yes.
It could be 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or 12 months, something like that. Usually it's like a 9 to 12 months, the people
Yes.
start giving results back. Okay.
Yes.
So
exactly.
after that, your investment will pay off. Okay. So before that, if somebody leave after, it's not actually, it's a problem for both. Even
Yes.
it's a problem for employer, and it's even for problem for employee also, because he might have not completely learned. Okay.
Yes.
That skill, whatever he is trying to learn, so it's not complete. Okay. So it's not going to be very much useful for him.
Yes.
So it's a both ways. Yeah. Very nice. Thank you, Akanga. Thank you very much. Yeah. So any more questions? Sir, we have like a five more minutes, Rajesh Garu. So if you would like to
Yes.
just conclude with something meaningful for the audience, this will be recorded and then it will be communicated for all registered participants, over 1,000. Okay.
Yes.
So I think they will watch it. Yeah. Please,
Okay.
please.
So one advice I would give for everybody, this is the magic pill I would say for anybody in the future, today, tomorrow, and everything. The world is in a very, very fast-paced environment. Things are changing very, very fast. So one advice I would give for anybody who wants to be successful, business person, owner, employee, doesn't matter who it is. If you are in the workforce and you really want to be successful, you need to have the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. This is the statement I want to give everybody, because you need to be a good learner. The continuous learning piece of it will help you to go back and understand what is happening. And then you need to start recognizing and saying some of these tools, some of the knowledge is not applicable today. So you need to unlearn that and move that away from there, because it's not going to help you for today and tomorrow. And then relearn the new skills. So if anybody is not following this, they will become absolute in a few years. That is for sure. You talk about AI, you talk about large language models, you talk about anything else. You want to be successful, I would strongly suggest think of these theme terms. The theme is learn, unlearn, and relearn. With that piece, I would like to go back and end my session.
I think learn, unlearn, and relearn. I think this is the fantastic point. I think, and it is very relevant. Maybe at this point of time, it's very relevant because of technologies and because of the transformations happening across the globe. Okay, so unlearning and relearning is the way forward. If you are not able to do that, I think you will be obsolete, and then it will be a big problem. Even if you want to catch up, maybe it's not even possible. You want to catch up. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much for a wonderful lecture. Very insightful. I really enjoyed hearing you. And so thank you. With all busy schedule, you came here and help us to hear you. Wonderful session. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity. Looking forward to hearing more from people.